We're going to start out with 50 microliters of a holding buffer. I'm going to set that in there. You can use any washing buffer. It's just a heat beads buffered media. 50 microliters of that. It's pipetter set at 25. So, then I'm going to add 50 microliters of the Equilibration solution. And I make my drops as I need them, because in the laboratory, every laboratory has certain humidity, and the key is you don't want those drops to evaporate prior to needing them. So I make them as I need them. So I'm going to pick my embryos, and I'm going to freeze. This patient happens to have one embryo remaining for freezing today. Today is day 5. You can continue to freeze some more on day 6. I do not freeze day 7s because I did that for a while, and out of 200 embryos I transferred, I got one pregnancy. So chose not to do that any longer. Is I put the embryos in here, I merge the drops together, set a timer for 5 minutes, and wait 5 minutes. Okay, now that I'm down to 1 minute remaining of that first 5-minute Equilibration solution, I'm going to make a 50 microliter droplet of just Equilibration solution. Always using a fresh pipette tip in between each setup, and I'm going to move those embryos down into that drop. I have 3 embryos total, actually. I thought I had 1. I looked at them again. I have 2 more. So I'm going to take those 3 embryos, move them to my Equilibration solution in that 1 minute. I have like 10 seconds left, ready to go. Reset my timer for another 5 minutes. And so at that 5 minutes, at about 1 minute, I'll make my vitrification droplets and load them up. One of the things I do, since I use a 300 micron tip for all my embryo movements, I'm going to go to a 175 micron, a brand new tip that has not been exposed to oil, because you do not want any oil on your cryo vessel. I prefer to use the cryolocks because they are very rigid. When I'm under nitrogen, I can stick them into the caps without bending it. I personally believe that if you bend those tips, you're putting it into the cap. It's kind of like bending glass. Vitrification means glass-like. And if you're bending glass, it's going to break. And so the embryo inside there is essentially breaking anytime you touch it. Now I'm going to make bit solution drops, just as I need them. My 5 minutes has just ended. And I want everyone to know that things don't turn to poison after 10 minutes. You have some room. I believe Mitch Shiwi has some new data showing that you can leave it into VIT solution even as long as 3 minutes without harming the embryos with very good survival rates. But I do like to set a timer, so at least leave it in there a minute. That's the key. Is like, I think a lot of us take it out too soon, and thinking that it's going to kill the embryos if it's in there too long. So I like that people like Mitch are going the extra mile and seeing how far can you push the limits with the embryos. So leave it in there a minute. Let the VIT solution penetrate the cells, remove the water, You have the penetrating and non-penetrating cryoprotectants. The penetrating being the ethylene glycols, glycerols, DMSOs. The non-penetrating being the sugars. Non-penetrating pulls the water out from the outside. So this embryo I'm going to load up too. Make sure I have the right vessel. Bring 2 down. Load up the cells just above the black tip, and then pull off the excess media, leaving about a microliter, a little less than a microliter. Do the same thing. Have loaded 2, then I'm going to do 1, 1, and 1, and leaving a single embryo transfer option for future cycles. Being day 5 embryos, there are going to be very good chances of successes with these. The only thing we can't tell is what embryos are genetically normal. We did not do genetic testing on these embryos. Key is to leave it in there, I believe, a minimum of 40 seconds. I like to set the timer for a minute. As I see the minute time roll around, I will load up my embryos. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes using vitrification. Something I want to bring alert to is the stirring piece of this. I think because the cryolocks are so thick and heavy, a lot of the initial people would actually use coffee stir sticks, and probably work really well. Put them inside a 1/4 cc straw, seal it up, and basically you got a CBS system. But one of the things you got to be cautious of is that when it's like sticking your finger in nitrogen, you have that vapor around it in the beginning. And so you want to make sure that it stays in contact with nitrogen. I think that was one of the key things that I learned as I was remove the media, stir it, making sure it's in constant contact with nitrogen until it stops bubbling. Do that same thing, one after the other. So I had 4 vessels. It takes about a minute per deal, so it's probably been in the equilibration solution, maybe a few minutes longer. A total of about 13 minutes. I know when we freeze eggs, we leave them in there for as long as 16 to 18 minutes. So I think we have some flexibility in time here. Just keeping track of our time. I had 4 vessels to do. I'm down to my last minute, and by the time I get this one done, it'll be done. The last step of this is putting it in a canister tank. Notice we want to keep everything below that vapor line, right in here, the vapor line. And keep everything below that. And the embryos close by. I don't move them too far. It's like right next to the tank. And I'm going to put them in this canister. Tank 4, canister 5. Notice we have different colors in there for the embryos. It lets us know basically based on their last name, like A through C is yellow, B through F is pink. So I'm going to raise this up to the vapor line. I'm going to put it over here right away. No, down into nitrogen. Well, my plug in there, and we're done.